Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, this episode is going to be a bit different from my previous podcasts, or at least the ones that have been going on recently. This one might in fact be worse than them, not because of the subject matter, but because I'm going into the subject matter a little less scripted than I've been going recently with my podcasts. Hopefully it'll still be good enough, but this is to give my more unbridled thoughts, I guess. Not ones that I've thought. I've thought about them a little bit, especially with the show wrapping up. But this is my more raw thoughts. And in July, the end of July, there will be an episode that gives my more structured perspective in regards to the show. But I will say one thing right here and now, just to get this out of the way. This show, the title is not a clickbait. It's not clickbait. I genuinely believe at this point, Andor is the best Star Wars show ever. Literally. I'll just be upfront. Better than Clone Wars, better than Mandalorian, better than Ahsoka, better than The Acolyte, better than all the other shows, better than all of them. Clone Wars was especially the one. It was the one that was fighting. Basically, ever since the beginning of Season 2, I concluded that it was better than The Mandalorian, but it wasn't until Season 2 ended that I was finally yes, it's better than Clone Wars. Now, this episode will also go into spoilers, so if you haven't seen this series, I recommend listening to the news stories and then skipping out. Once the news stories are done, then I'm just going to get into the show spoilers. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, El Salvador president announces foreign agents proposal fueling concerns of crackdown on dissent. El Salvador president Nayib Bukele says he's pushing forward a foreign agents bill that critics say would deal another blow to civil society and independent journalistic activities as the popular president tightens his control 3 years into a crackdown against gangs. While Bukele announced a few details on the proposal Tuesday night, the president wrote on Twitter that the bill would include a 30% tax on donations to non-governmental organizations, some which have long been criticized his government for moves that they assert are undemocratic. Because Bukele's power has a firm grip of control on the country's Congress, he will likely face few hurdles in jamming legislation through. Basically, the bill is going to crack down on organizations that are allegedly fueled by foreign agents. Now, remind you, this is the same country that also alleges that all the left-wing... this is the same thing. Remember, every single right-wing movement in Latin America makes the claim that the Venezuelan government is allegedly funding every single left-wing movement against them. Every single protest, every single, party, every single thing is all secretly run by the Foro de Sao Paulo. That's the alleged conspiracy theory that they all do. So, it's no surprise what this bill is going to do. Again, no surprise considering Nayib Bukele is a literal dictator. He's a dictator. I don't care what any of you fucking say. He is a dictator. He has literally copied Hitler exactly beat for beat for the most part in at least this early stage of the Hitler world. He's copied that almost exclusively. Literally, I see people arguing in favor of what Bukele does when I point out the fact that literally everything Bukele has done up to this point is literally exactly the same thing as what Hitler did immediately after the fake fire that happened in the fucking thing. And then they even go so far, opposition, people who claim that Bukele is so cool, they all just blatantly lie. One of the big, they'll just blatantly lie. It's funny when they do it to me, because it's just dude, I literally have been looking into fucking El Salvadorian politics for 3 years. Ever since Bukele got into office, I've been monitoring the fucking El Salvadorian elections and how things are going, and it's very blatant what has been going on. He conveniently drew the lines that allowed, even people who are fucking centrist Mr. B even point out even when I was in a thread of his where I was basically explaining the whole thing, even he liked some of my tweets because it's it's very obvious what he did. Look, conveniently he redrew the districts so that all the people who were his opposition candidates magically disappeared, and that it's so fucking obvious. I really don't understand how anybody can even remotely claim that he is anything less than an authoritarian, dictatorial type person. He brought the military into the legislative chamber to force the Congress to pass a bill that would allow him to have more funding towards the military and less restrictions on the military. But he's totally not a dictator. He passes a law that literally gives him complete and utter immunity to go after who he thinks is a gang member. But he's not a dictator. He was running for re-election before he even declared that the system would be changed so that he could run for re-election. But he's totally not a dictator. He shrank the amount of municipalities and conveniently drew them in a way so that his party would contain control of all the municipalities. Interesting. He conveniently redrew the seats so that his he had 50-something seats, and he basically had no seat change in the first time, in the midterms and now. But in the midterms, the seat number guaranteed him 2/3 majority. Now, his seat number gives him a 96%. Gives him a super majority. But yeah, totally not a dictator, guys, totally not a dictator. It's a fucking joke. It's insane. It's insane that he's just, they're just, the right wing is just blatantly authoritarian and fascist at this point. They're just flirting with the guy who's literally an actual fucking Nazi. They're best friends with Meloni, who is literally a Nazi, a fascist. Elon Musk literally did a fucking Heil Hitler during the fucking inauguration. It's how are any of these people even remotely serious? Whatever. Let's just move on to the next story. Next story is coming from Bolivia. One of the biggest interesting things that happened in the Bolivian presidential election. Luis Arce has announced that he is not running for re-election. Now, he has been running for re-election for a while, if you remember. Him and Evo Morales have been having a little bit of a problem in regards to their issues. And they've even had a third guy enter the field who is basically, and all three of them have basically been fighting over who controls the left wing in Bolivia, my bad. So, what ended up happening is as follows. He announced in a video conference, he said, I will not be a factor in dividing the popular vote. Much less will I facilitate the realization of a fascist right-wing project that seeks to destroy the social economic model. Because this is the thing that I was kind of saying was happening for a while now. Like the third guy running, it's come on, dude. Come on. It's pretty obvious why Evo Morales got that other guy to run. Because he wanted to split the left-wing vote so that the right-wing candidates would win. And then ultimately, he'd come back and be like, I'm going to win. It was basically what Huey Long wanted to do with the Union Party back in 1936. But basically, Luis Arce basically said, hey, I'm not going to be participating in this in the splitting of the left-wing vote to get the right-wingers in office. Granted, another reason why is because Arce of the left-wing candidates has not been polling the best. Most of the momentum has shifted away from Arce and shifted towards Evo and the other guy, Rodriguez. But then right after Arce announced that he was not running for re-election, during his press conference, he even stated that he wanted Evo to follow in his footsteps, drop your bid for president, so we can all just coalesce around Rodriguez. And then, coincidentally, right around the same time, the Supreme Court basically re-solidified that Evo Morales cannot run for re-election. But as of now, there really isn't much to be done. We just have to wait and see. Speaking of things that we no longer have to wait and see about, we're getting a bit of a development in a thing that's been going on for a while now. Remember how in 2014, 43 students were kidnapped and disappeared in Mexico? Well, it turns out, the Superior Tribunal of Justice member of that case, Lambertina Galena Marin, has just been arrested for allegedly giving an order that led to the disappearance of CCTV footage, which was key to the case. Literally, there was CCTV footage that was allegedly very important to the case, and she has allegedly been involved in that. And this is just a really big thing. This is a big thing. This was the thing that basically led to AMLO to become president of Mexico, and has basically led to Morena to get a supermajority, seeing how the entire political establishment failed in this one instance. In this one instance, the entire Mexican political establishment failed, and AMLO basically said, we're going to do something to try and fix that. Now, granted, not much has been done, but that was one of the big turning points. Something really big and bad happened, which led to this. One of the big shocks was me doing research into this, because this actually has relevance to a video that I'm making near the end of the year. It's kind of not, I guess I'll just say one thing that basically gives away what the video is, but it's very interesting to learn that I guess I could just read out the segment. I don't really care. I don't really care. It's a good teaser for the segment. Alright, here's the tease that I got for this. More controversy would arise with the party on September 26 of 2014, when 43 students were abducted in the city of Iguala, with not only claims that this connected to gangs, but also police, local government officials, and the Mexican military. Now, this would be seemingly the perfect opportunity for the PRD to rally against corruption that led to this horrible act. Except for the fact that the mayor of the town who was implicated as being part of this was a PRD member. So instead, they had to spend that time not only pushing him to resign, but the party head would also resign as well. So the PRD was able to move past this controversy. Not that secret what this video is. Anyways, let's move on to the next story. Kristi Noem wants migrants to compete for citizenship on new reality show. Kristi Noem reportedly wants the U.S. citizenship process to play out in front of cameras. The Department of Homeland Security has been working with writer and producer Rob Warsoff to pitch a reality TV show titled The American, where immigrants will compete in a string of challenges across the country for the honor of fast-tracking their way to U.S. citizenship. Citing a copy of Warsoff's 35-page program pitch, the Canadian-born producer aims to celebrate what it means to be an American and have a national conversation of what it means to be an American through the eyes of people who want it most. Warsoff is best known for producing the A&E show Duck Dynasty. This is just flat out insane. The fact that this is a real news story is just insane. And it's just... Again, it's just insane. What? And with the rise of that extremely buffoonerific and fucking like evil behavior, what's the Democrats gonna do to try and stop it? Well, the DNC takes steps towards ousting David Hogg as vice chair. The Democratic National Committee is moving forward with a challenge to David Hogg's election and that of another DNC vice chair just months after they attained their roles. The challenge centers on a procedural squabble, but Hogg, 25, is alleging it is connected to his plans to spend $20 million to try and oust older Democratic members of Congress in primaries. The DNC's Credentials Committee voted 13-2 with 3 abstentions to void the February elections of Hogg and Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta as vice chairs. The resolution will now go to a full vote for DNC members. If it passes, the election for the 2 vice chair roles will be re-administered. A losing candidate in the February vice chair role race, Kaylin Free, has alleged that Hogg and Kenyatta were elected under a flawed tabulation process. Yeah, this is all very convenient. And like people pointed out, like they go to her fucking Twitter and she's like best friends with Kamala Harris, and it's like, it's very, very convenient. David Hogg says, hey, I think it's time for the Democrats to take a role. And if the Democrats in charge aren't going to do this, then we need to get them out. And then magically, the Democratic Party says, yeah, magically, coincidentally, David Hogg just so happened to have been, like, he must have, like, gotten here through shady things. So we're just gonna get rid of him now. It's like, so fucking convenient. It's so convenient that this happened. So convenient. Like, I'm just gonna be real and say this. Fuck Ken Martin. Fuck Ken Martin. I don't care. Ken Martin sucks. He failed. The dude failed. We're doomed. The fact that Ken Martin's using his time to spend on this is just, like, reasons why we shouldn't fucking, like, dude, how, even in your own fucking strategy on what you want to do in the next election, how is this hurting you? Like, Ken Martin wants his strategy to be, we want to energize people to go vote. David Hogg's strategy is, we need to energize people to go vote. Where's the contradicting messages here? And David Hogg has made some things very abundantly clear. Like, he did a lot of things to try and make sure that things were not even necessarily one, he made sure that this wasn't a purely ideological battle. It wasn't an ideological battle at all. It was mostly an age thing. Like, you guys have been here for like 15 years. You're not getting anything done. You're sitting behind the wheel. You're fucking losers. We need to get you out of there and put someone who will fight. Progressive, centrist, fucking who cares? That's not the important part. We need fighters. Like, literally. We have AOC, who's a fighter, and then we have Pat Ryan, who's also a fighter, who's a centrist. He wants something like that. It's not an ideological battle, and he's even made so clear. Like, I'll stay out of your way in the fucking, like, swing seats. You guys can tackle those. I'm only going in safe blue seats that have no issues. Because again, as DNC vice chair, he's like, I want the Democratic Party to ultimately win. But he's basically saying, like, winning means nothing if we're not gonna do anything. And that's the point. Winning means nothing if you guys aren't gonna do anything. You guys won. with Joe Biden, and you did nothing. And now magically your plan is, we just gotta win this time, and then things will be different. It's like, how? Literally, all the fucking literally, the Democrats refuse to fucking learn anything. Literally, it's like, hey, Dianne Feinstein literally died while, like, fucking in office, and everyone was able to use the fact that they were old and dying to like, rile up support. And then magically, it's like, oh yeah, literally every single member of Congress is, like, fucking 80 plus is announced that they're gonna run for re-election. It's like, why? How in the fuck are you supposed to... You guys are the party of young people, right? That's what your whole shtick is, right? And then how's your plan for that? Like, we're gonna appeal to young people by running fucking octogenarian losers that nobody gives a shit about? Dude, these guys are nothing. Like, literally, I say this joke every time. There's, like, members of Congress on the Democratic side. It's literally just like, I have no clue who you are. I literally have no clue who you are. I know about politics a lot. It's like, this random person will, like, be on my tweet feed, and it's like, who the fuck is this? It's like, oh, this is a member of Congress? Who the fuck is this loser? David Hogg even went one step further and even said, like, look, I'll even go so far as to, like, I'm not going to use any of my capacity as DNC vice chair to do this. This will all purely come from my personal PAC, my personal wealth. No money from the DNC is going to be touched. This is all purely going to come from me personally. But then they said no. Ken Martin's like, no, we can't do that. You can't do that. Meanwhile, Kirsten Gillibrand is literally running all over the town, sucking Andrew Cuomo's cock, and then and he's just like, that's okay. And Martin's thing is like a fucking joke. Like, it says here, Martin said in a statement, he is, quote, disappointed to learn that before I became chair, there was a procedural error in the February vice chair elections. So wait, you knew about this? You knew that there was a procedural error before you became vice chair, and instead of correcting it at the time, you waited until now for it to be brought up? You waited? Again, coincidentally, this is all a big coincidence on my part. This is all fucking coincidence. Ken, you had a chance and you failed. Fuck you. I don't care anymore. You guys are fucking losers. The Democratic... Remember, this is the same party that said that Kamala Harris lost all 7 swing states. Let's run her again. The same party that allowed for fucking Joe Biden to go on a debate stage and literally be like, Medicare, and then they're like, let's run more octogenarians. This is the same party that decided that they were going to elect a 25-year-old school shooting victim to be their vice chair, and then the second he started saying things they were uncomfortable with, they were going to get rid of him. Meanwhile, the same people who helped rig the election to spearhead Hillary Clinton, the same people who rigged the election to spearhead Joe Biden, the same people who silenced any dissent about Joe Biden's mental health and everything else, those guys are allowed to roam free, talk about the Democratic Party, dictate policy, whatever. And then they wonder why young people just don't like them. Guys, you guys, why? Like, there is nothing much I could say anymore on this topic, because it's just like if Dems don't learn if this is this, like, from what I'm seeing from Ken Martin and his plan is that essentially nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Maybe Ben Wickler would have been a better choice. I don't know. Again, he basically went, nothing has changed. Like, Ken Martin will probably, if Ken Martin watches this, he'll probably, that's not true. No. You're doing the same thing that other Dem leaders have done. You're doing the same thing they've always done. Like, that's all you do. That's all you do. Because ultimately, I think I'm gonna say it. Ken Martin puts Paul Wellstone to shame. Paul Wellstone will be very disappointed in you. Paul Wellstone's rolling in his grave. I'm glad that he's not alive to see what you've become. I'm glad. All the Minnesota Democrats put him to shame. All you guys are corporate bought politicians who do nothing for the people. The only ones on the national level that even remotely give a damn at this point are fucking Keith Ellison and Ilhan Omar. It's a shame that you guys keep using Paul Wellstone as a fucking campaign tool without actually taking into consideration any of the things that he actually stood for. You all make me absolutely disgusted. And I regret ever even allowing myself to have hope for your campaign. I regret calling my fucking, DNC members to tell them to vote for you. If they did, they bring shame. I don't care. I knew Ken Martin would not even live up to my expectations as much as I wanted him to. But I didn't expect him to, fail this bad. Kirsten Gillibrand, allowed to suck Andrew Cuomo's testicles every day. David Hogg, not allowed to say, hey, maybe we should elect people who are not asleep at the wheel and dying of dementia. Anyways, let's move on to the last story, and it's about AI and copyright, because bad things are going on with how the copyright system is now. Okay, so Trump has decided to fire the head of the Copyright Office 2 days following a report that basically explained AI training on copyright work. So let's go into it. The Trump administration has reportedly fired the Register of Copyright Shira Perlmutter, who leads the U.S. Copyright Office, following the office's choice to release a pre-publication version of its opinion on the fair use status of AI training data that is made up of copyrighted information. Representative Joe Morelli, the ranking Democrat on the committee for the House administration, called the firing an unprecedented power grab with no legal basis, linking the firing directly to her report, which he says announced to her refusing to rubber stamp Elon Musk's efforts to mine troves. Basically, here's what it says. Here's what it says right here on the report. The report says as follows: but making commercial use of vast troves of copyrighted works to produce expressive content that competes with them in existing markets, especially where this is accomplished through illegal access, goes beyond established fair use boundaries. Literally, it just is, again, following the law. They're saying that this is how, again, the AI office, the Copyright Office in the US, made this abundantly clear months ago. They announced that AI works cannot be copyrighted. They announced that there were some legal parameters where a work with AI assistance, not AI completely works, can have some form of copyright protections, but works completely made up by an AI cannot be copyrighted. And this is going on to state that AI tools being used to make works that will then compete with non-AI tools, especially if that access is not granted permission, is not fair use. Which is just, again, the literal basic understanding of current copyright law. Unless you want to say that there is no such thing as intellectual property and everybody has access to every single piece of information in the world without needing to pay, without needing to go behind a paywall, without whatever. Unless you're saying that, then yes, under the current copyright system, AIs cannot use copyrighted materials to train themselves to be a competing version of the things. It's what these fucking AI tech bros have been trying to do. They've been trying to make the claim that AI literally stealing a ton of work and then copying it and then training their own AIs to use those works is fair use. It's not. It's blatant copyright infringement. And unless you're going to make the claim that you guys are also available to be infringed upon, then no, it's not fair. It's not fair use. It is not fair use to use. People pointed this out multiple times whenever this stuff comes in the news. Aaron Swartz downloaded a ton of documents that were not his and then published them. Well, he didn't even publish them. He just downloaded them for his own personal use, and then he got arrested and was forced to commit suicide because of this. But now Elon Musk is like, I want to train my AI to basically steal people's work and then make my own thing to copy, to use against it. You can basically copy and paste that work, whatever. But he's allowed to do it. And this is another thing about the Trump administration with laws. He doesn't care. Literally, this is just, again, blatantly violating the law as it stands right now. And since it's not under his purview or his master's purview, then that's how it is. That's what's going to happen. And this is why the left needs to step up and be talking about copyright reform. We need to start talking about this. Because ultimately, here's what the system is now. Now the system is basically, do you stand for the rigid form of copyright as it exists now, or do you want to change things specifically to benefit the AI tech bros but not everyone else? But ultimately, that's not going to happen. No one's going to care. And everyone's just going to, again, just rush to being pro-intellectual property. Just 100% pro-intellectual property. Again, but let's just keep this in mind. Everybody, remember, people like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and OpenAI's person, they're fighting for the rights to legally do copyright infringement. So, you have every right to do copyright infringement against them. That's just the law. That's the rules. Fair is fair. Fair use. Claim it's fair use. Do the get out of jail free card for fair use. I'm so sad that I deleted that document that contained that photo. I might have to I'm probably have to remake it, but it's basically just like, again, fair use is just what people use as a get out of jail free card. They don't understand what fair use is. They don't know what fair use is. In fact, we can just go into it. Remember, fair use has 4 specific rules in regards to how you do it. And I've gone through before. I even planned on making a YouTube short about it for the AI Tech Bros. But this is how it is. Like, 1, there are 4 factors to determine whether or not something is considered fair use or not. 1, the purpose and character of the use, including whether the use is of a commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. ChatGPT, Grok, and the fucking whatever Meta's AI is going to be, they are going to be for profit. So, no, it is not fair use. That's strike 1. Strike 1, not fair use. The nature of the copyrighted work. Like, is the work made... Like, the nature of the copyrighted work. I messed up when I talked about this in my Copyright is Worthless episode, but to summarize, the nature of the copyrighted work basically means if the copyrighted work is for educational purposes, then it has less restrictions on it than if it is for commercial purposes. And these guys, again, want to steal literally entire libraries. The whole point is to train the AIs how to talk, how to process information, and how to regurgitate that information. And when your AIs are going to be used to make prompts like, hey, ChatGPT, make me a story. Make me a story about these characters doing this thing. It's going to have to analyze other stories and other characters, which is a work that is not made for education. It is made to be a commercial use. So that's strike 2 of it not being fair use. Number 3, the amount and sustainability of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. They plan to use the entirety of completed works. Ergo, strike 3. And 4, effect of the use on the potential market value of the copyrighted work. These are going to be made, the stories that are made with ChatGPT are going to directly combat and they're going to be competition to works made by current artists that are made, whether it be an AI-generated art piece, AI-generated text, AI-generated whatever. All of it is going to be used as a competition to that. So literally, 4 out of 4, it cannot be classified as fair use. It is not. It's not fair use. It's just copyright infringement. And again, if you just want to say, fuck that, let's just legalize copyright infringement, then by all means, just go ahead, just be upfront. It's not fair use. And there's a reason why they want to make it fair use and not just blatantly go, yes, copyright infringement, because they don't want you to infringe on their copyright. They want to infringe on other people's copyrights, but they don't want you to infringe on their copyright. I say, if they have the right, if they get the okay, you get the okay. That's the rules. Either all of it's okay or none of it is. With that out of the way, let us move on to the main topic of this video. If you have not watched the show Andor, and for that matter, if you haven't watched things like the Clone Wars, Bad Batch, or basically if you haven't watched anything Star Wars related, skip this episode, but especially Andor, because this episode is going to be me going over a lot of spoilers. Again, this is my unbridled reaction to Andor. Not to be confused with the reactions that I post on my Patreon, which are literally me seeing the videos, like, basically the day of their release. Well, except for the first 2, like, ones for the recent, like, well, regardless, going over that doesn't matter, but, like, my point is, I watched these shows, like, and actually, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret on a lot of regards. Okay, so, initially, I'm gonna be real, because this is gonna be a little bit me, like, getting into a bit of a pretext, because this is what I need to explain, for those who don't know. So, all this stems from the first Star Wars, like, this all stems all the way back from Disney's first buyout of Star Wars, and their announcements for their initial plans for the Star Wars franchise after Lucasfilm, like, after George Lucas gave away the rights to Disney. They announced the 3 new movies, and then they announced they were going to do some spin-off movies. The first spin-off that they were going to release was something called Rogue One. Which, also, again, if you haven't seen Rogue One, spoilers. I haven't seen Rogue One, and I know the spoilers because I saw the Stop Quick episode of it. But, like, basically, Rogue One was the first Star Wars spin-off film in basically a long period of time. So, I guess it was the first official Star Wars spin-off movie. The rest of them were kind of like they were the fucking, like, made-for-TV Ewok movies, but, like, this was, like, a real, I mean, I guess also the Star Wars, the Clone Wars, the movie was also there, but again, it was kind of made for TV, but then it was put on the big screen. But like, this was the first made for movie theaters spin-off movie of Star Wars. And it was a very interesting endeavor for the first outing, because it was going to delve with one of the biggest things in Star Wars, like lore or Star Wars memery, and it's the idea of the Star. It was basically going to detail how the Death Star plans got to Leia in Episode 4. And it was going to detail sort of like, why did the Death Star even have the exhaust port lead to the fucking thing. Now, up to that point, I always thought that was kind of stupid. I don't like the fucking, like, that's one thing I kind of don't like about certain aspects of Star Wars, where they, like, feel the need to explain everything. Like, some things are just like, why? Why did you need to explain this? Like, and this also came from the Solo movie. It's like, Han Solo, how did he get his name? What do you mean, how did he get his name? I thought he was born with it. How did Han Solo get his gun? It's like, what do you mean? It was like, Luke had that gun in that trilogy too. I thought that was just like the most common gun in Star Wars. That's kind of the point. It's like a common gun. And in this sense, and it's like Star Wars fans like to do this funny thing where like the nitpick things. It's like, how did this happen? How did this happen? And like another one, it's like, why did the stormtroopers not shoot Luke immediately? If they're such good sharpshooters, why do they keep missing it? And they have to craft these elaborate Star Wars fan theories where they're like, oh, you see, they're actually intentionally missing Luke Skywalker, be it or Leia or whatever. It's like, when the real answer is obvious, if they were as good as sharpshooters as they were and they shot the main characters, the movie would be over in 5 minutes. Like, yeah, no shit, the stormtroopers don't magically just shoot the lasers through. Like, why does Luke Skywalker, a guy who, in the film, admittedly, has basically driven a car and driven, like a motorbike, essentially the Star Wars equivalent of a motorbike, and somehow he's able to pilot a literal fucking spaceship and shoot it fast. And the Death Star plan thing is always the same thing. It's like, oh, there was an exhaust port that magically led to the core of this fucking space station? How did that happen? And they had to explain this big, elaborate thing, like, how did this happen? It's like, we don't need an explanation for that. It's an exhaust port. Of course it's going to go... It's letting off exhaust. All of the air, all of the, like, carbon and, like, fucking things that is being expelled have to be expelled. And the energy core probably expels a lot of fucking, like, exhaust. The point is, like, also a little bit of, like, a hubris. Like, yeah, they just designed, like, this is just a design flaw that was just made because they weren't thinking clearly. Because it wasn't a thing that they didn't even consider. Like, who would have thought? And also, there's another thing. It's like, the point is that in Star Wars, they fail. On the first shot, they fail. Because it's not just shooting it in there. It's not just shooting it in there. Like, shooting it in there is one thing. But again, it's an exhaust port. It expels air. And it, like, goes down. It has, like, curved downwards into the thing. And that's the point. A normal pilot can't do that. Wedge and other people do that, and it doesn't work. Meanwhile, Luke is able to do it because he's a Jedi. He uses the Force. He turns off the targeting computer, whatever. And it's like, yeah. And that's one thing that really turned me off from watching Rogue One. I haven't seen it as of the day I'm recording this, and probably as of the day this video gets released. I will inevitably be watching it now, at one point, because of how this show turned out. But that's ultimately because, like, again, I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't really care about any of the characters. I didn't really know. I was more interested in seeing how It's also another thing, because I don't particularly like prequels. Like, it's not just, like, Star Wars prequels have a history of, like, being a bit more, let's just say, not well received by a lot of people. But also, I just don't like the concept of a prequel. I want my stories to move forward, not backwards. If this story was interesting, you would have told it already. I wasn't exactly 100% like, oh, I mean, I saw the trailers for Rogue One, and it wasn't necessarily the worst possible thing, but then I also heard a lot of things where it's like a lot of the stuff that was in the trailers didn't make it in the final film because they had to do some reshoots, they had to rewrite the story, they had to restructure it, and I just kind of was not interested in, like, the film itself. And then one of the things that made me less interested about it was the concept that I learned, like, through all the reviews, where I learned that every single main character in the film fucking dies. So it's not like we can pick up the story where these guys left off. They all go. It's an admittedly bold choice to do, but it was a bit of an interesting, it just kind of was a little bit of a, I don't know, I know how their story ends, so there's not much for me to really get into for that. Which is why I kind of felt a little bit weirded out that of all the things that were going to be released, of the new Star Wars shows and new Star Wars ideas, one of the things that they're putting out was a show based on one of the characters from that movie, Andor, Cassian Andor. And I just wasn't particularly interested in that idea. Because again, it's a prequel of a prequel. I know how his story ends. He dies getting the Death Star plans to Princess Leia. It's not really that interesting. Like, other Star Wars shows are able to at the very least be like, hey, here's this new group of rebel fighters. Who are they? I don't know. But you'll have to figure out what happens to them. Do they live? Do they die? I don't know. The same thing with, like, fucking, like, the Clone Wars series. It was like, yeah, we know Anakin and Obi-Wan live, but, like, what happens to these guys? Do they live? Do they die? It's one problem I have. It's like, because one problem with people is, like, they got, like, certain characters just have plot armor. That's why moving forward with a story is better than moving backwards to tell a story of the past. Because, again, like, I mean, with the sequel trilogy, would Rey live to the end? I don't know. Like, I mean, I was at the end of my seat when fucking, like, Finn was almost sacrificing himself in episode 8. It's like, that could have been it for him. If it was a prequel to, like, Finn being a 50-year-old man and, like, fucking, like, teaching kids the Jedi way, it's like, well, then there are no stakes. This guy lives. There's a fucking, like, Clone Wars plotline where they have Obi-Wan Kenobi get shot, and they posted, like, trailers of it in, like, they had commercials like, will Kenobi live? It's like, yeah, there's no stake in this drama. Prequels are a very difficult thing to do right. If you do it wrong, it's not going to be impressive. It's just going to be it's just going to be boring, and it's not really going to do a lot of, it's going to be bad. And a lot of people had that perspective with the Star Wars prequel trilogy. And that's why I ultimately decided to tune out of that show and not watch it, while I would watch shows like Ahsoka, or The Book of Boba Fett, or The Mandalorian, and see the stories of the future. I mean, The Bad Batch as well, like those shows. And, you know, they had relatively different perspectives. Mandalorian was overall a really good show. The second and third seasons were kind of average compared to the first season, but, you know, it was still overall a good show. I really liked The Bad Batch. Ahsoka was fine. I mean, there was a lot more. I did like, as a fan of Rebels, I did like a lot of the callbacks to Rebels. Meanwhile, other shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi and The Book of Boba Fett had, well, let's just say they weren't necessarily the best shows, but they weren't the worst necessarily. They're like average. I mean, I'll be real. Those ones didn't really draw me in. But then as a lot of this stuff was going on, I noticed that there were a lot of people, as the show was airing, that seemed to be very interested in the show, especially people on my side of Twitter, which was like the political Twitter. So I was like, interesting. So I decided that would be, for interesting purposes, I'd at the very least watch the show, at the very least see if it would be worth making a Politics Media episode. Because I was at the point going to make an episode about like I made one at the Star Wars original trilogy. I think I made the prequel one already. And I was on my way making the sequel trilogy one, and it was just like, I wanted to see sort of like the different like angles of like Star Wars politics, and maybe Andor would be different, maybe it would be interesting. So I decided to check it out. And you could watch all my reactions of Andor on my Patreon, and you'll notice that in the first season, I kinda didn't really like the show. It wasn't really drawing me in. Again, I didn't care about Cassian Andor. I didn't care about any of the new characters that were being introduced. It was just kind of boring. It was slow. It really wasn't doing well for me. And I was just kind of, even at the point where I was even complaining literally on Twitter, like, hey, when does Andor get good? I was just so fucking like, ugh, I just wasn't really interested. To the point where I was even at the point where I'm just like, yeah, if it doesn't draw me in at this next episode, I'm just going to full on quit the show. Because, like, my philosophy in regards to watching a show is very simple. If it doesn't draw me in immediately, I probably won't be watching it. It's why I haven't it's why I haven't finished watching The Acolyte despite watching the first episode. The first episode really teetered on the line of whether or not it draws me in or if it turned me off from the show. Like, it wasn't until episode 3 that I was kind of like, okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. Like, you can see it, like, in the first 2 episodes, I'm just like, when does this show get good? And then episode 3, I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, I wasn't necessarily drawn 100% in, but I was like, I'm at least interested to see what happens next. That was basically what happened. Then, episodes 4 and 5 came in, and they, like, basically got really good. And then it wasn't until episode 6, which was, I believe, the Aldani, like, the climax of the Aldani, like thing, and I was, like, really hooked. And then after that point, it kind of didn't really dwindle. Like, I mean, I literally ranked them, like, in season 1, out of a 5-star rating, episodes 1 and 2 are 1 star, episode 3 is 3 stars, episodes 4, 5... 7, 8, 9, and 11 are 4 stars, while episodes 6, 10, and 12 are 5 stars. As you can see, it was a little bit of a slow burn, but as soon as it picked up momentum, it really did not lose momentum. Like, it wasn't until the end of the show that I was literally just like, I wasn't until the end of season 1 that I was really like, I'm fully in on this show now. And it was because of the plot lines. Like, it wasn't because this is one of the big things that a lot of people have been saying a lot about modern Star Wars, is that it's, like, quote, too political. And it's just like, fuck you, you're stupid. Star Wars has always been political. That's literally one of the major draws of Star Wars. And it's just very blatant why this show is better. Because this show really understands what Star Wars is. It understands that at its base, it is a story about anti-authoritarianism, rebellion against authority. That's what the big crux of Star Wars is. Like, the politics in the show are intrinsically linked. Like, politics in Star Wars is intrinsically linked to Star Wars. Star Wars, as George Lucas himself stated, is based on the Vietnam War. The rebellion is literally based on the Viet Cong. That is a fact. And this show really does not shy away from the political elements of Star Wars. I'll be honest, one of the first things that really drew me in was the character of Nemik. Nemik is a character that is very explicitly politically oriented. Like, very explicitly. Like the story is basically how Cassian Andor gets radicalized, and Nemik is one of the people that is part of that process. Nemik literally has a manifesto in the show that I'm surprised hasn't been made into official merch yet. I mean, I would gladly like to fucking read the Nemik manifesto in full. I would gladly like to read that. Even after his tragic passing, they give Nemik's manifesto to Cassian, and Cassian reads the manifesto in full. Well, he doesn't read it in full, but, like, he reads bits and pieces of it. And it's, like, very much intrinsically linked to his ideology. And it's one thing that also really worked with this show is that it introduced characters that would come in and then come out, and then they would still be breakout roles. Nemik is, of course, the first one. And in the season 1, another character that became a breakout character was the character of Kino Loy. Because Andor gets sent into an Imperial prison, and then he meets up the guy who is basically the head of the prison. Not necessarily the head of the prison like a warden, but he is like the top prisoner in there, because they're basically put into forced labor camps. And Kino Loy is literally like the guy who is forced to be the one in charge. Essentially, like, he's the capo. Well, not necessarily, but, like, he's, like, supposed to be the guy that's basically the liaison between the prisons, like, the prison staff and the prisoners. And then they learn, like, I mean, it's sort of like built up, like, oh, it's just going to be like a normal thing. Like, yeah, they do their time and then they get out. And then we learn in one episode, that's not how the Empire works. People, like, prisoners that were transferred from this prison were accidentally transferred back to this prison. And then, due to that revelation, they decided to kill all those prisoners instead, where they learn, and that's where Kino Loy learns that despite following the rules and doing what he was supposed to, he's just going to inevitably remain punished forever, which radicalizes him into leading a rebellion with all the other prisoners, including a character from Rogue One I didn't know at the time, Melshi. And the story adds one more bit of tragedy, because he gives an emotional speech, ready, my name is Kino Loy. We need to get out of here. One way out. And then everybody's radicalized. Oh shit, let's go. Finally, we're getting out of here. And then the only way they can get out is to swim to shore. And then it's this triumphant music. It's oh shit, everybody's happy. I remember, you could watch my reaction again. I was happy. I was yes, yes. You can't see my reaction. You can't see it. But then in the episode, Cassian then turns to Kino Loy and says, "What's wrong?" And then Kino Loy says, "I can't swim." And Cassian's forced to leave him there. He's accidentally pushed off, and then they basically leave him there. You can't see it, but when that moment happened, I covered my mouth. I was like, it was so fucking oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It was insane. They just literally ripped their heart out. And then I saw a lot of people on, even now, a lot of them like to do the thing where, the next season, Kino Loy, we're gonna get him out of here. We're gonna do something. We're gonna get him out of here. And I'm like, guys, you guys don't understand the message. Kino Loy's dead. They don't confirm it, but Kino Loy is dead. Kino Loy is fucking dead. That's the fact. Kino Loy is dead. He is canonically dead. He is, I know, Star Wars fans have this, stupid mentality where, we didn't see a body, so maybe. No. Kino Loy led a prison riot against the Empire. Do you really think the Empire would let him live after that? No, he's dead. And I get some of the reaction, because I saw some people were doing reaction videos and they're all saying dude, you better grab Kino Loy, you better get on my back, let's go. It's you guys don't understand. It's things I didn't understand at the time too, and I fully understand why you might think that, but that's not the point. The point is that the plotline is unresolved. We don't see Kino Loy die. We don't see him get saved. That's where the plotline ends. The story moves forward without him. Yeah, sure, we can all fill in the blanks about what we think happens, but the realistic scenario is that he's dead. And that's just the sad truth of the situation. But it wasn't just Cassian Andor that kind of and there are some things you need to understand, because sometimes there are some things that even the show does that I don't like. But then it isn't until later I realize, oh wait, this makes perfect sense now that I think about it. Why did Cassian go to jail? I thought it would be because, I guess I should get into this, a character named Cyril Karn, who is a member of the ISB, I think? I don't remember. Is he from the ISB? I forget. He's basically an extremely low-level Imperial. Literally the most bottom-of-the-barrel pencil pusher of the Empire. He's not one of those ones that you see in the rooms with Darth Vader and stuff, but he's literally just the most bottom-of-the-barrel. Basically a local cop. And he investigates something Cassian Andor did. Cassian Andor murdered another member of that police force because he was looking for his long-lost sister, which he never finds. Which is, again, there's a part of me that says, oh, why didn't we find his sister? But that's not the point. That's not the point of the message. That's not the point. And then Cyril starts trying to investigate Cassian Andor. And I thought that was going to be what happened. They'd catch him and they'd put him in jail. But no. Cassian... or the Aldani heist. But no, Cassian Andor is literally just walking down the street after he escapes all of this, and then gets harassed by an Imperial, and then just gets thrown in jail for arbitrary reasons. That at the time, it's just really? This is why he goes to jail? But then now that I look at it again, it's oh yeah, no, that makes total sense. That's the point. The point is, he can't escape the Empire. That's the point. And that's why they have to fight back. For a lot of people, they could just ignore it and look away. If you're a rich senator, there's a chance that you could just ignore all the troubles and just live your lavish lifestyle. such as is the case with Mon Mothma, who gets a ton of development in the show, and I greatly admire it. Mon Mothma has always been a character that's sort of like a little bit, like, she's basically a background character for the most part. She was this random rebellion general in episode 6. They sort of build up that she was at one point a senator in the prequel trilogy, but don't really do much about it. There was a deleted scene where they basically reveal that she's one of the most vocal opponents of Palpatine, but nothing really happens. They do add a little bit more of that in Star Wars The Clone Wars, but again, for the most part, she's just a background character. Like, she's just basically a glorified background character. And then, this show adds a lot more depth to her. Like, again, we kind of get the sense, like, yeah, she is basically well off. She, again, was vocal of Palpatine, but, like, at this point, she can just kind of, like, vibe. She's rich. She was rich back then, but that's not the type of politician she is. That wasn't the type of politician Padme was. That wasn't the type of politician Bail Organa was. Those guys were not like that type of politician. And they were not like, no, we can't just sit idly by. Like that was Padme. Padme literally throughout the entire Clone Wars was like the most extremely vocal opponent to Palpatine and his actions. They explain very clearly that his military agenda has cut social programs so immensely that a lot of the people on Coruscant now live in poverty. So Padme is one of the loudest opponents to that. Mon Mothma now lives in a world where Padme is gone, and literally, the Senate essentially serves as a rubber stamp of Palpatine. She basically can't be any vocal about him anymore. And that's boiling inside of her. And she's basically just like, I can't do this anymore. I need to find a way to fight back. And that leads her towards the path of the rebellion. With season 1 kind of being how she's using her, position to kind of make secret backdoor deals to basically push for the rebellion. But on the surface level, it just looks like, oh yeah, she's a politician doing backroom deals. Like, no shit, of course she's doing that. But it's she basically, I guess, serves as she tries to paint herself as I'm just what's the term called? Forced opposition. Controlled opposition, that's the term, controlled opposition. But she's like, I'm basically controlled opposition, but behind the scenes, she's like, I'm gonna be a lot more of a vocal opposition. And that is where we get introduced to Luthen Rael, who I didn't even know at first was a completely different character. I thought he was a character from Solo or something, but he's a completely original character created for the show. And he's basically he is doing all the heavy lifting behind the scenes to kickstart the Rebel Alliance. Now, we've already seen, because we've seen Star Wars Rebels. Star Wars Rebels kind of tells the story of how the rebellion formed, but, this is a different rebellion. There are many different factions of the rebellion. We all know that. And Luthen is basically trying to kickstart a specific faction of the rebellion. And in doing so, he works with a character that has kind of gotten a little bit of a questionable, perspective in the Star Wars fandom, Saw Gerrera, who's basically considered he's basically portrayed the same way he's been portrayed basically the entire time he's existed. He's basically painted as the one guy in the good side that goes too far. That's how Saw is portrayed in basically every single thing. He's always portrayed as the good guy that goes too far. That's always how he's portrayed, because it's the kind of rebellion, that's the kind of character he's supposed to be. The rebel that's going too far. In the first season, him and Luthen work out a deal that basically sacrifices an entire rebellion flank, specifically to help Saw Gerrera move troops. And of course, he's basically portrayed in every single negative sense, in other stories, where it's the heroes try to do one thing, Saw is basically doing everything they can to try and, hurt that cause. He's still ultimately trying to do good things. Yeah, he's trying to destroy the Empire's, there's a meeting, spoilers for Bad Batch, again, there's a building where all the major Imperial heads are holding a meeting. Saw Gerrera goes, hey, boop-a-doop-a-doop, why not do that? And then they're like, no, but we need all the information here. He's like, boop-boop-a-doop, too bad, sucks for you, goodbye. And then leads to one of the main characters dying. So, again, he's portrayed as the radical that's going a bit too far. But that's, again, the complete contrast to characters like Cyril, who's, again, the pencil pusher. This is the point. It's like super unstructured. I kind of like completely skipped over my analysis of Cyril to talk about the rebellion. But like Cyril, back to Cyril. Cyril was interesting because, again, he's like the lowest level of the totem pole. And he's trying to get Cassian. He's trying really hard to get Cassian. And in doing so, he basically becomes a nuisance to all the Imperials above him, including a woman by the name of Didra, who's like the actual Imperial put in charge of trying to take down Cassian Andor. Meanwhile, Cyril is kind of just like, again, like he's like he has nothing to get. Like there's even moments where he gets fired and he has no reason to like even remotely care about like the Empire doing its good things or whatever, but he still pushes for it. He's like I mean, and there's one episode that kind of portrays like sort of an analysis of him. Like it's like he has a bad home life, and he's clearly trying to compensate for it for trying to be a hero in the eyes of the Empire. He wants to be like a top Imperial. Like I don't know if he was raised under the Empire or if he was like that. I don't know if he was like raised under the Empire or not, but like that's clearly the interpretation I'm getting. Like he's basically like he's drank the Kool-Aid and he's like fully accepted all of for lack of better terms, he's accepted their propaganda. Meanwhile, contrast that with a character named Dedra, who at first I kind of didn't want to be introduced. I kind of wanted like Cyril to kind of be that guy, but again, it makes sense in retrospect. She is portraying a different type of character. She's not necessarily an Imperial who buys into the propaganda, but she's an Imperial who's trying her best to also, like, her and Cyril are to an extent similar but also different. Like, Cyril is kind of doing it in the sense of, like, he's like, my patriotic duty. She's doing it because she really wants clout. Or I guess Cyril's more like, I want order in the galaxy. Like, I mean, if it was the galactic, if it was the fucking, like, Galactic Republic, he'd be fully all in on the Republic. But since it's the Empire, he's doing it in the sake of Empire. Like, it's the same thing with Star Wars. Like, it's like, a lot of people are like, oh, the Galactic Republic are the good guys. It's like, not really. They're just same faces with different paint jobs, but like it's complicated, obviously. And again, like seeing a lot of developments, just kind of interesting. And a lot of things about like the first season, they have a lot of themes in the first season. Like, you know, like one of the themes of the first season is, again, like, I mean, the common theme of like the entire series is, of course, fascism versus anti-fascism. That's kind of like the biggest like thing about Star Wars ever. But another thing is, like, they have, like, the treatment of indigenous populations when the Empire occupies a planet. Well, they occupy multiple planets. They occupy Ferrix, which is, like, the main character's home planet. Then they also occupy, they occupy Aldani, and they force, like, the indigenous people of that planet to literally, they basically, like, forced to, like, fucking, like, they're just not really treated well. And we see a lot of the problems that come with it. Like, we see, like, I mean, a lot of it is, again, of course, with, like, the Star Wars theme and all. But, like, this is where the one that gets interesting. One of the biggest things that, like, and this is one of the things that I really had to learn. I learned this, like, by the end of the first season, I really understood why I kind of misjudged the entire series at first. What I saw as its greatest detriment was actually its greatest asset. And Tony Gilroy, the creator of the show, explained it very simply. Like, he said it as well. But, like, the thing is, we know where Andor's story ends. Andor dies. Cassian Andor dies on wherever the fuck the planet that they destroy on like, in Rogue One. Like, we know where his story ends. That's where his story ends. And that's kind of made me go, like, okay, well, then why should we care? But that's where they got me. That's where they got me. Where it's like, wait, that's why this show is so important. Since they know where his story goes, they can literally do whatever the fuck they want. And they did. They did things that were way deeper, way darker than anything Star Wars has ever done. And one of the big things that a lot of people point out, especially when it first came out, was like, they would juxtapose a scene where, like, George was like, Star Wars is a franchise for 12-year-old boys, and then smash cuts to in episode 1 or 2 of this series, where one of the characters, Bix, is literally going to have sex with her husband. It's like, yeah, like, this is a bit more than just like a silly kid show than other Star Wars properties have been. It's for adults, and that's one thing that's great. This show is for adults, and that's one thing that's like, yes, I want this. I want R-rated Star Wars content. We're not children anymore. We can watch these, and that's one of the beauties about Star Wars. That's one of the things I really like about Star Wars. It's a franchise that on one end can have something like this, where a character is literally like getting ready to have sex with someone, and like there's like really brutal death scenes, and then on the other end, we have like a show made for literal babies. Star Wars is such a massive franchise. There are shows, video games, movies, things that can, like books, comics, again, anything for anybody under the Star Wars banner. It's why this show is so fascinating. It's like, again, this show is such a vast contrast to how Star Wars has been historically. And that's another thing that I like. I've seen Star Wars be in that PG-13 level for years. I've seen that. I've seen it over and over and over again. I've seen it 9 times, in fact. Scratch that. Clone Wars has over 100 episodes. I've seen it like 100 plus times. It's not that time anymore. It's time for us to move past it. It's the same thing. I want new and interesting original ideas. That's why I liked The Mandalorian when it first came out. No connections to any past franchise episodes. No connection. Completely new character. Completely new lore. Everything is so new about this. And I want that. I want more. And then people point out that's why the latter seasons of The Mandalorian failed, because the second season introduced a ton of old cameos from people like Ahsoka. And it's like, I kind of get what you're coming from, but like I would argue that some of them worked-ish. I'll admit the Ahsoka one didn't really work it for me. The Luke one made a lot more sense in my opinion. Rebels sort of had that same problem. First season, completely new original idea. It's like, it's not Clone Wars. Guys, remember, it's not Clone Wars. Then by the end of the first season, Ahsoka shows up. Second season is basically Clone Wars season 6.5. And then it wasn't until the final season that they basically like brought back the idea of like, yeah, this is not Clone Wars. It's like, yeah. Why? Why would it be? That was, of course, due to extenuating circumstances, but, broadly, I think that worked as well. But there are some tropes and ideas in Star Wars. It's just like, a lot of people have grown to expect these tropes, and that's why it's time for us to try and do something new. I want new. That's why I actually like the sequel trilogy, for the most part. I like the first 2 episodes of the sequel trilogy. New characters, new direction. I want new. I'm sick and tired of the same old thing regurgitated to me over and over and over again. I want new things. If you're going to continue using this intellectual property, do something original with it. And that's where there's a lot of difference between me and a lot of other Star Wars fans. They want the same old things regurgitated to them over and over again. Statistically, it's proven. It's proven that people want to be spoiled on things. They want the same thing. Every single study on this topic shows this is true. There's an old game theory video that I explain. I bring this up a lot because it's a very important thing. They point out, like, in the Mario franchise, what games sell the best? Side-scrollers that follow the same Mario format since Mario 1. All the new and original games that came out that changed the Mario format at the time of that study were not doing so hot. Mario Sunshine at the time was the worst rated Mario game. Or like, not the worst rated, but like the worst selling Mario game. And I guess to an extent the worst rated. A lot of people don't like it. Why? Because it's not what they expected. They want the same old again. And it's why a lot of people are not necessarily enthused about the ideas of like, a new Star Wars trilogy. More Star Wars movies. Blah, 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 blah. Because they want the same old things. Like, they've made jokes about this multiple times in every other form of media where it's like, man, I want a new original idea. As long as it's exactly the same thing, it's like, yeah, that's literally what happens. Because when new ideas come around, they don't like it. Conveniently, every time there's a new and interesting idea in Star Wars, people are ready to rush to be like, this is shit, stupid, do different, do better. Clone Wars came out? No, we don't like this. Like, literally. Like, to pretend that this is any different than any of the hates of the previous franchise. This is the thing I don't like about a lot of Star Wars fans. It's like the ever-changing reaction. Like, it's one thing I don't like. Reactionary fan bases in general, they love... And again, it ties back into the point again. It's like, they want the same old thing. And why? Because they want to be kids again. That's what they want. They want to perpetually be kids. They can pretend it's not true. They do. The most popular Star Wars channel on this platform is a guy called Star Wars Theory, who in his reaction to the Mandalorian Season 2 finale, explicitly stated that he liked it because it's exactly what 6-year-old him would have wanted to see. Why are you basing what you, as an adult man, want to watch in media based on what you, as a child, would have wanted to see? I base what I want to see based on what me, now, wants to see. 6-year-old me was watching fucking Sesame Street. I don't want to watch that no more. I want to watch things with, like, actual in-depth storytelling. Every single, like, it's weird. It's weird, because, like, on one end, nerds are treated in, like, this really derogatory way that really goes against what is considered traditional and whatever, but then these same guys then just fall into similar reactionary viewpoints. And it's because, ultimately, at the end of the day, they want the same thing. They want to revert to the past. And for reactionary nerds, it's that they want to go back to a time period where they were young. They didn't have to worry about things like getting a job. They didn't have to worry about things like, you know, providing and becoming a normal member of society. They want to be able to collect their, like, fucking, like, trinket toys and be like, I want to do this forever. They want to collect their toys forever. They want to watch the same shit over and over again because that's what they want. They want to go back in a period of time where they didn't have to pay attention to things like politics. They didn't want to pay attention to things like the news. They don't want to do that. They don't want to, they do not want to be adults. They want to remain man-children. It's the same, we see this every single time a person, like a YouTuber, like, makes things now that people in the past didn't like. It's like, oh, why aren't you making things like you used to do? It's like, because why? Like, iDubbbz, an example of which comes from iDubbbz. iDubbbz is a YouTuber that made a lot of edgy content in, like, 2016, 2017, whatever. Like, I guess before 2016. I guess 2017 is kind of when the YouTube, like, algorithm started shifting a little bit. But, like, he made, like, really edgy YouTube content, at least before 2018. Because I know that's when the fucking Asian Jake Paul content came out. But, like, that was his whole spiel. His whole thing was, like, he was, like, an edgy YouTuber who kind of, like, didn't give two shits about what people said and, like, said, like, really edgy things. Like, again, he was a white guy who would say the N-word sometimes. Ooh. And he'd give, like, in-depth analyses explaining why people like him should say the N-word. But now that he is grown up, he's in his 30s now, he's like, yeah, that type of content doesn't really sit well with me. I don't really like doing that kind of content anymore, and I kind of just want to move past it. And now a lot of people who are his fans are like, what? Why? Why? Why do you want to do that? Well, why? Well, why? And instead of, like, acknowledging, he just basically, he said why. He's older, he's matured, and he thinks a lot of things that he did in the past weren't the best for him. And they're like, no, we do not accept this. When Filthy Frank wanted to quit and decided to become Joji, people were just like, no, I don't want you to change. I don't want change. People don't want change. They're scared of change. They want to remain perpetually children. They want to stay that way. It would be, like, I mean, yeah, it would be nice to just be like, yeah, I just want to be in a time period where I don't have to worry about getting a job. I don't want to be in a time period where I have to worry about, like, paying, like, fucking medical debt. I don't want to be in a time period where I don't have that. But that's not happening. Time is linear. We move forward. And I'd love to go back in time and be like, yeah, I'd love to be, like, in a time period where it's like I don't have to pay attention to things like a genocide going on in Gaza. I'd love to, like, not think of, like, the political situation of our country is going to shit. I would love to think that. I'd love to be in a time period where I don't have to pay attention to that stuff because it's like the grown-ups will handle it. I'd love to do that, but I can't. That's not the world we live in. And I'd love to be in a time period where I could just sit down, watch Star Wars: The Clone Wars on TV, and do whatever. Just do that. But that's not the world we live in. Star Wars: The Clone Wars ended. It's time to move on. The prequels aren't the hit new thing now. Now we have more Star Wars films to do. We got more Star Wars shows to do. And rather than sitting by and be like, no, I'm going to maintain the things that I liked are good, and the things that they are new are wrong. Even though, again, that's a similar viewpoint that happened to you. I remember when I was a kid, and the prequels were persona non grata among Star Wars fans. All of them hated the prequels. They're like, oh, fuck the prequels. Ugh, it's the worst things. Literally, even to the point where they're saying, like, George Lucas raped my childhood. Like, literally, these are things that were commonplace on the internet. Now that these guys have grown up, and now they can offer their perspectives on the prequels, now they say the prequels are the most amazing things I've ever seen, and anybody who disagrees is stupid and cringe, and that anybody who likes the new sequel trilogy, they're stupid and cringe too. Star Wars Theory refuses to sell any merch that says that he likes the sequel trilogy. He'll gladly sell merchandise that says the original trilogy is good. He'll gladly sell merchandise that says the prequels are good, but he will never sell merchandise that says the sequel trilogy is good. Because he was bullied for liking the prequel trilogy when he was a kid. Now that he's an adult, it's his turn. That's my point. It's like, rather than actually moving forward, be like, yeah, the toxic fandom wasn't that good. Let's try and change things for the future fandom. It's like, no, we're just gonna push it on the next generation. Why? Why is someone saying they like the sequel trilogy? And again, you're entitled to all your opinions on it. You're entitled to say that the prequels are good, the original trilogy is good, and the sequel trilogy is good. You're entitled to say that every single Star Wars film is good. You're entitled to say that the sequels were good and the other ones were shit. You're entitled to all your opinions. And I'll gladly talk to you about it all day, every day, about like why these films work, why some of these films work, why some of these don't work, because I can actually articulate my perspectives on these. And I can hopefully, and I'll even acknowledge, like, sometimes it's just like the me watch TV and brain like this, but brain no like this. But it's just so strange. And me calling the fucking, like, new Star Wars, like, fandom, like, reactionary in general. It's like, that's not just in the sense of, like, just them being, like, reactionary in the sense, like, they want to revert back to, like, childhood. They're literally, even politically reactionary. One of the big things that they don't like, wokeness. What is wokeness? I don't know. They just don't like wokeness. But it's, from what I've gathered, wokeness seems to be black and brown people existing. That seems to be what wokeness is, because they complain all day long about how the new sequel trilogy is so woke, even though it's like, really, this is like the least political Star Wars trilogy I've ever seen in my life. The original trilogy and the prequel trilogy are significantly more political, explicitly, than the fucking sequel trilogy is. The sequel trilogy had to downplay a lot of its politics to appeal to a broader audience, but whatever. Apparently, these guys were woke because, I don't know, again, Mexican male character, fucking black male character, female character, Asian female character, purple hair, I don't know. It was woke, apparently. What is woke? Again, I don't know. I've never heard a person ever coherently tell me what woke is. Literally, I've gotten in debates online where I've just been like, what is woke? And they say, you know what woke is? It's like, no, I don't. Please tell me. Elaborate what woke means. Because from what I've seen, wokeness literally just means black and brown people exist. That's literally what wokeness seems to be. If anyone can dispute it, please tell me. I'd love to know what the fuck woke means. And, like, again, I keep being mean to a lot of these Star Wars fans, and it's because they deserve it. But, like, again, they don't really help, they help my case a lot by, again, Star Wars Theory literally saying that when he watched Andor, he fell asleep. It's like, you're an adult man, and you watch a show made for adult men, and you fell asleep? What? Like, I mean, again, I'm trying to be, like, somewhat fair, but, like, again, if you skip this episode, watched Andor, came back, or even if you already watched Andor and you're listening to me rambling, and you say, I didn't like Andor, it's like, fine. If you don't like Andor, you can tell me why you didn't like Andor, and maybe we could articulate my perspective to be like, this is why Andor is a good show. Maybe this video probably won't be useful in that regard. Maybe the one in July will probably be more useful in that regard. But, like, the thing is, like, I'm perfectly fine with someone saying they don't like this Star Wars film, they don't like this because of this reason. But when they're going to the point where it's like, it's woke, or whatever, it's just weird. It's not Star Wars. How is Andor not Star Wars? How is it not Star Wars? It's very much, it relies heavily on the themes of Star Wars that have been existing in the franchise since 1977. It's basically almost like a lot of people really say it really feels like A New Hope kind of back. A New Hope was literally like, because people don't understand. We don't understand. Me and Star Wars Theory and a lot of the newer Star Wars fans, I mean, I wouldn't even say the newer Star Wars fans, like, people of our generation, we don't get it. We don't understand a time period where Star Wars was literally just one movie that was released in theaters that people just kind of had to grasp at straws to figure out what the lore was. We don't live in that world. We live in a world where Star Wars has, like, multiple TV shows, multiple characters, expanding universe across the entire multiverse. We live in this world, and we'll never understand what that world is like. And Andor is apparently the closest thing that we get to that perspective. And ultimately, the perspective is, again, the differing philosophies. Because I ultimately do want new things. And ultimately, my philosophy of Star Wars is a lot more based on sort of, like, the criticism. I mean, I made a video where I talked about like the Star Wars fandom already, where it's like, I said it before. I like the prequels. At least I like some of the aspects of the prequels. I guess I can rank the movies again. In my perspective, the movies are ranked as follows, in my opinion. Episode 6, Episode 5, Episode 8, Episode 4, Episode 7, Episode 3, Episode 1, Episode 2, and Episode 9. And that, to a perspective, I can understand. I mean, of all those ones, the only one that I can definitively say I 100% hate is Episode 9. Episode 2, I kind of lean on close to hating it because it's like really, really boring of a movie. But otherwise, I can find good aspects and bad aspects of the rest of the Star Wars films. I can find good and bad in Andor. But I mean, again, I said it before. Some of the things that I initially think are bad, I kind of like get broader understanding. When it's like, you have to Andor is a show that you really do have to rewatch. I haven't rewatched it, but it's a show that you really need to come at it in multiple perspectives. You need to watch it a couple of times to kind of get it. I mean, I don't want to come off too fucking pretentious, but like, yeah, it is a show that really needs to like be a bit more examined. You can examine a lot more Star Wars films, but there are a lot of Star Wars stuff that you can literally just watch and then just kind of move on with your day. And that's kind of the thing. And he's like, again, that's what gives this show a bit of an interesting edge. It's a show that you need to kind of like get a bit of broader understanding about like not just history, but like politics, and to really get and grasp a lot of the themes of the show. Because like, again, this is the one where the themes of the politics really are like hammered in really hard. This is probably, again, this is probably the most political Star Wars thing has gotten ever since the prequel trilogy. And it's so unapologetic about it. Like, the prequels, again, were to an extent unapologetic about their perspectives on the politics scene, but like this one is pretty like unapologetic as well. But I guess I should at this point kind of move on to season 2, because like season 2 I had a vastly different perspective, and the season 2 reactions will be uploaded on my Patreon like basically every Sunday. I started on May the 4th be with you, and then every single Sunday since, they will be releasing a reaction of all the episodes of season 2. And basically at the end of every single episode, I say this show is a 10 out of 10, because that was when I kind of like absorbed the themes of season 1 and kind of like got a bit more excited about season 2. And it's like, because especially season 2 got a bit more explicitly political, but like there are some things, again, you can give some criticisms, and this is where I can actually explain a little bit some of my criticisms. One of the things that is a little bit interesting with season 2 is the fact that it was originally, like, Andor was originally supposed to be a 5-season show. And what happened was that, due to the troubled production of season 1, seasons 2, 3, 4, and 5 were condensed into one season, where it would be, like, the show would be dropped in 3-episode intervals. Each interval would be one arc, and each of those were supposed to be, like, I guess, the arcs of each season. And to an extent, while I can understand that there's some things like, yeah, this probably was going to be expanded a lot more in the full season if this were to get a full season, but it really does work well with this formatting. Like, I think this must have like solved the one problem I had with season 1, its slow pace. Because it kind of gets right into the action in season 1. Which could have possibly been Tony Gilroy taking the perspective from the first season and reactions to it, and basically like, yeah, okay, I can kind of get why some people might not have liked this like slower turn. Maybe I'm gonna like, it's not like too sped up, but it's like, I mean, I guess there are aspects of it that are a little sped up. Like the one character that really doesn't do well with this formatting is Saw Gerrera. There was very clearly supposed to be a bit more buildup in Saw Gerrera's like military and militant force that was clearly left out on the cutting room floor. But it worked well for the most part. For the rest of the cast, it didn't really affect much. I guess the only other one that might have gotten like slightly affected was Cyril. Like Cyril had a bit more of a character arc this season. Like the first season was kind of him like building inroads to be part of the Empire. And this season did a little bit of an interesting one, because I didn't even expect it when it was happening. It was an arc about Cyril sort of realizing the flaws of the Empire. And that was one thing that's like, oh shit, I didn't even expect that. Because we've seen like the whole story of like Imperial traitors to the Rebel Alliance before with Ancient Callus, but like this one gets a bit more interesting. Because we build this up a lot. Like Cyril is, again, like, he's a pencil pusher. He drank the Kool-Aid. He was blindly loyal to the Empire, essentially. Lowest rung in the totem pole. He didn't have any real stake in, like, the Empire being the Empire. Vader does well. Palpatine does well. The top Imperial heads do well. But Cyril lives in a one-bedroom apartment with his mom. So it's like, he doesn't do well under the Empire, and yet he's still completely loyal to the Empire. He's clearly, like, the guy who just buys... He's, like, the fucking, like, Nazi incel. That's what he is. I might even go so far as to say that he's probably a reference to a lot of Star Wars fans. But anyways, Cyril, he doesn't really have anything to gain from this. But then this season, he starts to gain things from this. He starts getting promoted. He starts getting, like, interested. And they're like, oh, yeah, this is interesting. But then he's tasked with something very interesting. The first episode of the season, they reveal something big. And it was revealed in the trailers too, but they reveal that they're going to be sending Imperial troops to Gorman to slowly start to occupy the planet. And eventually mine minerals inside of the planet to power an energy program that Palpatine is trying to push towards. Dedra and Cyril are basically the ones who are tasked with making sure that the planet, like, gets ready for occupation. And they basically, like, very elaborately built up, like, yeah, they've already been slowly building up some some rhetoric on the planet already. They're building up, like, anti-imperial rhetoric on the planet, and they're building up anti-Gorman rhetoric around the galaxy. And one of the big things that was interesting when I saw the trailer, and I saw, like, the trailer pop up, and I guess I'll show you, like, some brief things about the trailer, because, like, there are two things about the trailer. The trailer kind of did two things. Like, one, they revealed one big thing, where they revealed that there was going to be the Gorman massacre. Like, that was kind of, like, not spoiled necessarily, but, like, it was kind of, like, explained a lot. Like, apparently in Legends, it was, like, in Legends, and, like, a very prominent thing, it was, like, there was a massacre on the planet Gorman. And that massacre is what led Mon Mothma to officially break away from the Senate and become a member of the Rebel Alliance. That's what the lore was. And this one was going to be like, we're going to tell the story of the Gorman massacre. And it's like, oh shit, this is actually interesting. Like, I mean, again, I didn't really know much about the Gorman massacre. I didn't know anything about the Gorman massacre, to be honest. But it's like, okay. If they do it right, they'll do it right. But one thing that really bothered me was the one part of the trailer, and it wasn't the trailer necessarily, but it was the fan reaction of the trailer. And there was one scene where Dedra starts grabbing her throat and starts, like, hyperventilating. And it was like a moment, like, in the trailer where, like, in trailers where they do that thing where, like, dun 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 dun, or it's like it flashes like multiple things in, like, short amounts of time. But like, due to the fact that our fandom, like, the fandom is, like, really, like pause every single moment and analyze every single thing in the trailer, what ended up happening was that a lot of people started theorizing that Darth Vader was going to appear in the show and was going to force choke Dedra for her failure on something. And that made me super mad, because this is the problem I have with the fandom. And it's a problem that, like, a lot of Star Wars fans... I've said this before in the previous Star Wars fandom episode, and it's the fact that Star Wars fans like to basically try to spoil the whole thing, and then get mad that it's like, oh, it either turned out exactly what happened that I theorized, or it didn't turn out at all how I theorized. It's a common meme where it's like, why didn't the sequel trilogy meet my expectations? And it's like, the sequel trilogy has Darth Vader fighting Thanos. It's like, really? What did you expect? And it's like, why are you guys putting in people's mind the idea that Darth Vader is going to be in this show? If you saw a red lightsaber, then maybe you could theorize about that. But, like, this really didn't, like, the idea that Darth Vader was going to be in the show didn't even register with me when the trailer popped up. It was only after these guys even talked about it that I even thought it was a possibility that Darth Vader was going to show up in the show. And I pointed out, like, why are you guys doing this? Why are you guys bringing up the possibility that this is going to happen when there's, like, literally, again, nothing that really remotely says that this will happen? It didn't really bother me either way, in the sense, like, if he did show up, cool. If he doesn't show up, cool. Andor, I was like, I had faith in Andor that they could do it. Like, if Vader showed up, they could do it right. And if he didn't show up, they didn't need him. They didn't need him. this is more of the Star Wars fandom really being like, we need old characters to pop up here and there, which is what Star Wars thinks that fans really want. It's like, I don't want that. Star Wars characters popping up every now and then, it's like, whatever. Again, new show, it doesn't need old characters to come back. But then what about Krennic? Krennic is different, because Krennic is literally like integral to the plot of the show. But anyways, the thing is, that didn't really matter either way. Back to Gorman, it was very interesting to see that, like with Cyril literally being like brought up, like they bring him to the Gorman planet, and he's basically like, the plan is that they're going to use Cyril to infiltrate the Gorman Front, a secret rebellion group on Gorman, and they were going to then basically like find out the truth about what was happening. Like basically he was going to try and egg them on to do more radical things, and then they're going to do more radical things, which would make the Empire push for more problems, like, which is basically, again, things that happen in real life all the time. Like basically every single like terrorist group in the Middle East is always like propped up by like the US to an extent. I mean, to tie this point to the current situation, Israel has bankrolled Hamas for years, and then they commit October 7th, and then Israel then goes, see, now we have to go do this thing and kill all the Palestinians, which is literally what they were going to do with Gorman. They're egging the Gorman Front to do something bad, and then when someone does something bad, then they're going to attack back. And it was very interesting because Cyril admits like he doesn't believe the Imperial propaganda about Gorman, especially considering he goes there and he's like, I've met these people, I've interacted with these people, these are just lies. But then the Empire starts going harsher against the Gormans. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. And then they keep feeding Cyril information. It's like, wait, huh? Which makes this thing go even worse. And then, I mean, first, I guess we gotta go into the rest of the series. Like the first episode, like the first 3 episodes were really good. I mean, not surprising. And it shows, and it's like, I'm actually surprised that fucking like Disney and Star Wars allowed Tony Gilroy to do this show, because there's so many things that are like again, this show is based 100% on history. Like basically every single thing in Andor can be pointed to an actual real historical event that happened, and it's very interesting. Like, I mean, Tony Gilroy point blank explained, like, yeah, basically everything that is in the show has been a historical event. One of the things he said was the Igran building thing that happened in Palestine. And it's like, he's like, yeah, I based elements of it on that. In the first season, there's a moment that's very obviously inspired by the Haymarket affair, where a character throws up in a fucking Imperial crowd. It's like, yeah, obviously. I can't say the word on YouTube, but you know. And it's fascinating to see all these historical events play out very much like almost exactly how they happen in real life in Star Wars. And again, it's like very much like not hiding its politics at all. But one of the things that really, really, really got me interested was like, it was spoiled for me because I was working on a video and I couldn't watch Andor when it first came out, so then I had to I accidentally clicked a thing and it led me to a spoiler for one of the first 3 episodes. And it was the fact that Andor was going to go one step further and have an actual attempted rape scene in the show. And then I watched it, and it's like, this whole plot line is so fucking fascinating, especially as it comes out now. It is literally talking about how immigrant workers are exploited by the people in power, either through their labor, which happens to 3 of our main characters, and also in the actual sense of like rape, which happens to one of the main characters as well, Bix. Which led into another controversy because the greatest intelligent man in the world, Star Wars Theory, had to make a really weird comment about this, where he basically argued that the Empire would never condone rape. What? Like, dude, you are an adult man. How can you not understand the fact that this is, one, based on things that literally happen in real life? Like, every single military has had members of the military in the invading forces rape people in this has happened. Like, literally, almost every single invading force has raped fucking people in the current, like, that happens all the time. I don't understand how this guy is, like, an adult man, and he doesn't understand this concept. Like, even his own fucking panel on his own fucking show was just like, what? They were like, it doesn't matter if Darth Vader condones it or not. Like, again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I guarantee you that not a single military in the world has ever explicitly, there's not an explicit part in their military code that explicitly says, like, you can rape all the people you want. That doesn't exist. But they turn the other cheek. That's the point. They turn away because it benefits them. That's the point. Vader would, and it's also the funny thing, number two, the funny point where it's like he's like stupid enough to be like, Darth Vader would never condone this. It's like, he's murdered children. You really think that the dude who murdered children is gonna be like, oh, rape is why I draw the line? Are you stupid? Like, it's why the prequels fucking, like, ruined any chance of, like, this being a series. The prequels ruined the chance. Like, literally, it's just like, Anakin's just like, yeah, I'm just going to be completely evil now and just murder children for fun. Like, are you serious? You seriously can't be this fucking stupid. And this controversy apparently led him to even go so far as to say that he would no longer talk about Andor, even though he's literally the #1 Star Wars channel. His whole point, his whole purpose of life is literally talking about Star Wars. But then when people criticize him, he can't be like, he has to be a bitch baby about it. Be like, people are mean to me, I can't talk about Andor anymore. It's like, meanwhile, he's allowed to insult, berate, and demean every single other Star Wars YouTuber, every single Star Wars, like, actor, every single Star Wars, like, he's able to say all this shit about all these other people, but then it's like, when it comes to him, he's like, oh, I can't do this no more. He's a fucking coward. That's what he is. He's a coward. He's a baby. He's an infant. He wants to be called like an infant and live like with his baby friends and watch fucking like baby shows all day. You need to watch Jedi Baby Adventures, that show, whatever the fuck it is on Disney XD or whatever. You gotta watch that show because that's what you need to. That's the thing. That's more your style. Andor's for the people who actually have a brain and think clearly. You have to watch something that like handholds you. It's just insane. It's just insane. Again, this guy is the #1 Star Wars YouTube channel, and he's just like, that's his bar. Like that's his analysis, really. And rather than acknowledging, like, hey, maybe things weren't written clearly and written good, maybe that, maybe you could try that. Or like, no, everything is like this 100% canon. Everything like this is 100% like written well. George Lucas is a god. His whatever, blah blah blah. Like, that's his viewpoint. It's like, yeah, it's basically a childlike viewpoint. Like, yeah, person who made this thing is amazing. Like, even though I've praised Tony Gilroy in this, Tony Gilroy is not the only reason why this show is a success. The actors who do the show, the guy who plays Luthen, I forget his name, Diego Luna, Kyle Soller, Denise Gaw, the girl who plays Luthen's assistant, like her. They all are phenomenal actors, and it's very surprising, especially to see that one, because this is apparently her first major role. It's like, oh, she did this well. The actors give a 10 out of 10 performance. It's just amazing. It's amazing. It's honestly, again, it's like, how did Disney get away with making a show this good? And right after they made fucking Daredevil Born Again, which kind of goes through similar themes, it's like, how did they get away with this? Come on. Who's the secret communist working at Disney? Come on. Bolt would have a word with you. And again, like, this show, I would actually say broadly, like, none of the episodes in this, I'd have to like rethink about the show to give a proper analysis of like the episodes. But I would have to say, so far, of the season 2 episodes, I would say that for the most part, all of them are 4 and beyond, like either 4 or 5. I don't know if they would all be 5, but I know that they would all, like, the lowest number would be a 4-star, because there's no way, like, I'd even go so far as to say that maybe this series has a 10-star. I mean, yeah, it does just say a 10-star. And that was, of course, the build-up of the Gormans. It was building up. Because, again, like, one of the big things is, like, the Gorman Massacre. It's like, most people knew it. Like, they knew it was coming. But they didn't know when, and they didn't know how. It was basically, everyone was on the edge of the seat, like, what happens? What's happening? When's it coming? Season 2, Episode 8. The pause kind of says a lot. That is honestly one of the best things of one of the best things I've seen, period. That episode, it was building up. It was, the fact that I honestly think this was supposed to be a finale, because this has almost all of the, like, build-up that Rick's Road had. But then again, we also had another episode that had a similar, like, fanfare to this would be, of course, No Way Out. I don't know if that's the episode title, but, like, yeah, whatever. This episode, it was built up. It was built up a lot. We saw all the elements of the Gorman, like, we've seen a lot of elements of the Gormans. We saw how the people were. We saw how other characters reacted to them. We saw the rise and their fall of the rebellions, like the good and the bad about the rebellions. We saw everything about them. We got really attached to them. And we saw one big thing. It was one big thing. And the first thing that showed me how this episode was going to be way better than before was when Cyril confronted Dedra. He walked up to her, and I was watching that, and it was like, oh my gosh. I literally could not believe what I saw. But Kyle Soller, his performance was so amazing in that episode. It was so good. I'll never forget my reaction when he went from, like, his normal demeanor to, like, just fucking snapping. Like, I was literally just, like, I had to watch that multiple times when I watched it. Because it is so... just seeing all of that break out, just, like, he was building... He had so much built-up anger from his childhood, from his whole life, that it just boiled out in that one particular moment. Literally, I was literally just like, I was watching, and he's like, how long have you known about this? And I literally was talking, and then he, like, shocked me when he screamed at the top of his lungs, like, how long? It's like, oh my god. I was like, oh my god. And then when he grabbed Dedra, I'm like, oh shit. I was, and then seeing him, see in that scene when, because inevitably they came. But, like, one thing I caught this almost immediately, when it's like, wait, they're going to shoot because when the Empire did that, like, when the Empire shot their own people, and then that forced them to shoot into the crowd, that is, like, again, based on history. One I've covered before. I've actually covered on the channel before. The Tlatelolco Massacre. That is, like, an explicit reference to the Tlatelolco Massacre, where the Mexican military hired snipers to shoot at the military to then fire, which then forced the military to fire into the crowd because they thought that the crowd was firing into them. It was a similar thing. Like, again, the whole point was manufacturing consent. That was the whole message of that plotline. Like, they were manufacturing consent among the, like, Imperials broadly to invade Gorman, and they were manufacturing consent in Gorman to kind of do that as well. Like, manufacturing the consent of the people who, like, literally, it's like, to the people, like, the military Imperials would not hold back because they thought they were in legitimate danger. And the fact that the Gorman front brought weapons legitimizes it in the eyes of the broader empire. Like, look, these guys brought weapons. They were clearly looking for trouble. They had fucking journalists there waiting and ready to explain, like, oh, the Gormans, they're rallying, they're doing crazy things right now. And Cyril saw it. And he was so taken aback. Because, like, again, to him, they were just... And he was looking for a way to get the Gormans out of it. Because he's like, I heard rumors that there's a foreign influencer who's aiding and abetting you guys. And then they just kind of... Like, it was, again, manufactured consent. And that's one thing that a lot of people didn't understand. I mean, well, I guess I'll mention, like, the bad Star Wars fans didn't understand. Because, like, one thing that really, like, this is the thing. Like, the Gorman Massacre is such an impactful thing to come from Star Wars and to come from any media ever. And the fact that there are many people who legitimately don't get it is so fucking stupid. Like, one person on Twitter literally said, they posted on a tweet that they're like, why did the Empire do this? Why didn't they just go to the planet, mine the resources, and then... It's like, You fucking idiot. They explain this in the first episode. They say very explicitly, mining this resource in the planet will cause the planet to collapse. And we basically have no imperial influence on Gorman. They're basically an independent nation, an independent planet. Well, not independent, but like we have very little control over their internal politics. There was no scenario where the Empire could have just asked nicely for the Gormans to have their planet. That was the whole point. And then we learn at the end, later in the show, that the entire thing was built on a lie. Like, yes, the only person who knew for a fact what they were, like, I mean, I guess there were only two people. The two people who knew for a fact what was happening was Krennic and Dedra, because Krennic was, like, the whole point was that they were mining kyber crystals. Or I don't know if they were mining specifically kyber crystals, but, like, they were mining a thing that was going to be used for the Death Star. That's the whole twist. It was all based on a lie. Like, even in this realm, it was based on a lie. Again, based on every single other form of U.S. or other military endeavors, it's all based on a lie. It's basically, again, I mean, at this point, if you are a Star Wars fan and you, like, unironically simp for, like, the Empire, it's just, like, you're just showing yourself. You're honestly just showing yourself. Like, MatPat made a theory, like, before the fucking First Order came out. He's like, oh, actually, if you think about it, the Empire was actually good because it actually did have stability. It's like, really? Really? Like, ever since that day, Disney was just like, we're just going to prove MatPat wrong. That was their whole philosophy, because the Empire has just become so unequivocally, unabashedly, like, fascist and evil. Just unequivocally. And then seeing Cyril, they literally have Cyril stand in the middle of the crowd, watching all this carnage happen because of his help. He helped do this. And then right as this happens, he sees Cassian, the person he's been chasing for basically at this point, I think 3 years. He's built his entire life around him. And even I didn't understand necessarily why he did this. Like, he ran up to him and he just started beating the shit out of him. And again, at that point, Cyril was scary. I was legitimately scared of Cyril. He was a fucking maniac, and that's why I'm more scared of people like Cyril than people like Darth Maul, Darth Sidious, Darth Vader, because Cyril is a person who is real. Someone like that exists. There are people just like Cyril, a dime a dozen of them, that exist, and they're out there, and they're willing to do shit when they don't get their way. Like, my perspective was, at the time, and I think this is still kind of true, was that he was saying, like, there was, like, outside influences, because he was being told by the Empire, outside influencers are trying to influence them. So my thought was, like, he was, like, going after Andor, because he's like, you're the outside influence. You're the one who's doing this. It's your fault. But that's kind of true, but it's also kind of like, a lot of people also understood, like, there's, like, a bit more than that. Like, Cyril blames all of this on Cassian. Not necessarily he blames it on Cassian, but, like, Cassian is his scapegoat. He can't accept his own responsibility in this regard. He can't accept that he, aligning with Dedra, did this. Like, he can't accept that Dedra was evil. He can't accept that the Empire, the people he stood with all this time, are evil. He can't stand for this. He still, in his mind, thinks the Empire is right. He still thinks that the Empire was forced to do this, and he wants someone to get out of it, like, to scapegoat. And it's like, you, Cassian, you are the reason why I'm here. You put me in this position that I am today. You put Dedra in this position today, and you probably did this. You did this, and that's why I'm going to stop you. And they also misinterpret Cyril. Like, I mean, again, this is the thing about, this is like a thing about my philosophy about redemption arcs, which I covered, like, recently in my, like, most recent episode. It's like, this is like a sort of a redemption arc, but not like there's a little bit of a misnomer about, like, what a redemption arc is. Some people think a redemption arc means, like, an evil character turns good. That's not necessarily what it means. It basically just means an evil character stop being evil. That's really what a redemption arc is. But, like, you have to go that one extra mile to become a good guy. And in that moment, Cyril had redemption to an extent. He walked away from the Empire. He was like, no, I can't do this anymore. But he was in the middle of that crowd. He saw all those people getting shot and murdered. He saw those people suffering. He didn't do jack shit to save them. He didn't do anything to help them. He didn't do anything to warn the people about something bad happening. He did nothing of the sort. He did not do anything of the sort. He ran to Andor to scapegoat him, to beat the shit out of him, to possibly kill him. That's because that's, to his mind, like, that's what he needed to do. And then he has Andor. Andor's on the ground. He's got a gun, and he points it directly at Cassian. He's like, I'm ready. I'm finally gonna fucking do it. This thing I've been waiting so much. I've spent my entire life doing this. And he points the gun at him, and then Cassian looks up at him and says 3 simple words. Who are you? And in that moment, everything breaks. Not like Cyril has spent 3 years obsessing over this man. This man has been his entire viewpoint, his entire belief. This man has been the boogeyman of Cyril. And yet Cyril has never registered in Cassian's mind. Because Cassian fights for something more. He fights for freedom. He fights for liberation. He fights to defeat the Empire. Cyril has nothing. And in that moment, he realizes he is nothing. There's nothing to him. He is nothing. And for that brief moment, there is a possibility that maybe Cyril could possibly see the light again. He lowers his blaster, and then gets shot in the head and dies. The only thing I didn't necessarily like was that I kind of wished that an Imperial killed him. Because I thought that was kind of going to be the thing. My theory at that point in the show was that Cyril was going to get murdered by an Imperial, and then they were going to use his death as this brave Imperial soldier gave his life valiantly to save blah blah blah. And that was going to be the narrative that they're going to push. And in the episode, they kind of imply that is still the narrative they're going to push, because like at the end, Cyril's mom is like there, and she's crying she's crying really hard. There's no way that she was crying that hard for all the random people that were killed that day. She was doing it because Cyril was there, and she knows Cyril was dead. And I kind of wish that they did like a little bit more explicit, like Cyril, like, or maybe like there was like here are the people of the Imperials that have been notified, have been discovered to be dead, and there's like show Cyril's name and she cries. But it's like, I mean, you kind of get it already. But again, the only thing I really wish that, I mean, but like again, that's not the point. The point isn't about like if an Imperial directly killed him. The point is that Cyril dies. The point is that he had that's not the point that they were giving. This is the specific character thing that they were going to do. And it's like, okay, and this works. The final arc is building up to Rogue One, which it's good. I liked it. And I liked the scene where like where Andor like literally helps Mon Mothma get out, because again, Mon Mothma gives a good speech that is like very good. It's similar to the Marva speech. I didn't mention Marva's death and Marva's speech and Marva Andor's speech in the first season. It was a really impactful speech. It's like a speech that got really popular after Donald Trump got elected. And then this, and she gives it, and Mon Mothma gives a speech in this season, but this season's a bit different. Like Marva's is of course about like fighting against the rebellion, against the Empire directly. Meanwhile, Mon Mothma's is more about tackling the idea of like truth and propaganda. And again, very interesting that this comes out this year when we are in the midst of the misinformation age. And yeah, again, like I said, final arc is basically them building up to Rogue One. The only thing that's very interesting of note is Luthen dying. And it's like, I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. I liked it. I liked seeing it. Even as I don't know a lot about Rogue One. I'm excited to get into Rogue One. I'm going to watch Rogue One after Andor. And I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to have a lot more impact and a lot more like belief and like respect for this movie now that I've seen Andor first. And it's again, this show is amazing. It keeps the central themes of Star Wars, but does it in a way that has never been done in Star Wars before. And that's why this show is honestly the best Star Wars show ever. I mean this wholeheartedly. It is better than The Mandalorian. It's better than the Clone Wars. Again, the Clone Wars. It's better than the Clone Wars. And I made a controversial tweet where I said, like, if you like the Clone Wars, there's no way you can't like Andor better. Because Andor does everything the Clone Wars does, but better. It tackles deep political themes. It tackles, like, it gives, like, a bit more of an understanding of a time period in between two films. It gives you a lot to talk about. It gives you a lot to understand. And it's like, yeah, it just does it better. Like, Star Wars The Clone Wars is, like, for as good as it is, it's still a show made for like 12-year-old boys. That's what the show was made for. And I mean, it really didn't. I mean, even really, like, Star Wars: The Clone Wars didn't really start getting good until like season 4. But that was because Clone Wars grew with its audience. Like, season 1 was for 8-year-old boys. Season 2 was for 9-year-old boys. Season 3 was for 10-year-old boys. Then the latter seasons are like for boys like 11 and up. Like that's when the boys start getting like starting to get like a bit more like their brains start getting a bit more developed and start getting a bit more interested in like, oh yeah, we're going on a deeper story. And it's like that's when things got a little bit more deeper. But now the 8-year-old boys who watched Clone Wars initially are now in their 20s, in their 30s. Maybe it's time to watch something different. And it's great. I honestly love it. Even as some Star Wars fans keep trying to like bash it, it's just like it's way better than any of them want to give it credit for. I don't get why. It's like, it's funny, even with Star Wars theory, it's like, this is like the one time that Star Wars fans have this is the last time Star Wars fans have been in almost universal agreement was like Clone Wars Season 5 finale. But now we're in almost all agreement that Andor is great. But he's like the one guy that's just like, no, I don't want this. Even his own fans are trying to be like, what the fuck, dude? This is like the one thing that you've been asking for so long. Something new, something original. Why are you getting so pissy about it? And he keeps trying to pull up bullshit reasons as to why. One thing is like, oh, it's so pretentious. It's like, yeah, sometimes, yeah, maybe, I guess. But like, again, this is not a show for children. You're judging it based on like being a show for a child. And like, there's one thing. It's like, again, again with the whole like, oh, but he wouldn't condone rape. It's like, I mean, who says so? We've never had a Star Wars story that's dealt with rape before. You're basing this on like a show, like again, stuff that was made for babies. Well, not for babies, but like stuff that was made for children. And you're saying like, oh, but like based on this thing I saw for children, it understands like this. Like, no, like I mean, are you gonna base your like argument about like Magneto based on the fucking Superhero Squad show? No, you're gonna base it on like the comics or the movies or anything. We've never had a Star Wars show that's dealt with the topics of like rape or sexual abuse. Well, I mean, we've had it like teetered a little bit with like Slave Leia, and like we had like Ahsoka as a slave one episode in like a scantily clad outfit that was like yikesy with like very heavy implications. The Twi'leks are kind of notoriously like known for like possibly being sex slaves, but like it's again never explicit. It's never explicit. It's like hidden a little bit so that kids can watch it and not get like those messages. But like again, this is a show for adults, and it's this thing I saw. I was like it's like people were like judging like, oh, like these are the same people that said Star Wars is for children. It's like, no, what? There's one Star Wars account. I don't even understand their argument. It's like they're the one and they're like saying like, oh yeah, they're defending they're defending Andor's rape scene, but then also saying that this is a franchise made for children. It's like, no, what? You're the one saying that it's made for children. Like, what? I don't think Star Wars is a franchise should be just quote-unquote made for children. And we now have a medium where we can have a more adult Star Wars show. A thing that has been teased for a long period of time. Star Wars Underworld was a show that George Lucas wanted to make before, like, he wanted to make a show for a while about, like, an adult Star Wars show. It was going to be a show made for adults. Explicitly an adult show that was going to deal with topics that Clone Wars would never cover. It was an untapped market in Star Wars. And now that spot's been filled. And we can get more. And Star Wars Theory made a video. It made a video recently, and it was so bad it got deleted. But apparently this video was him playing an old clip of Tony Gilroy after Rogue One, where he basically says he doesn't like Star Wars. And it's supposed to be a gotcha. That's supposed to be like the thing that he plays at the beginning of the video to be like, oh wow. I didn't watch the full thing because I didn't care about it, but like I was literally just taken aback with the interview. I'm like, wait, what? And then I checked it and it's like, yeah, it's real. It's like Tony Gilroy said that he wasn't a fan of Star Wars. To which I say, you know who else wasn't a fan of Star Wars? Gary Kurtz, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, Anthony Daniels, Peter Mayhew, Alec Guinness, David Prowse, James Earl Jones, Alan Cushing, and literally every single other member of the crew of Episode 4. They weren't fans. They were people there to collect a paycheck and go home. Like, literally, a lot of them were literally there to collect a paycheck and go home. Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford explicitly said like they thought that George Lucas's writing was shit, his directing style was shit, and that the movie would flop. Everyone thought the movie would flop because the only person who was passionate about it was George. He was the only one who was interested in it. He was the only person on the crew who could even remotely be considered a fan of the franchise. And that kickstarted a multimedia franchise. Made by a bunch of people who weren't fans. Harrison Ford is notorious for every single interview of his being like, I don't like Star Wars. What the fuck? I'm an old man. Who cares? This is a show. This is a movie. Blah, blah, blah. I don't care. So what if Tony Gilroy is not like a fan of Star Wars? So what? He's able to capture what makes Star Wars in its themes and its stuff. I would assume he watched it at some point to judge whether or not he's a fan of it. I literally don't give a shit if Tony Gilroy is going to be a fan of Star Wars or not. Because guess what? The show that he put out is a good show. This would be a good show regardless of if it was Star Wars. It was and it being a Star Wars show makes it good. It doesn't make it good, but it being a Star Wars show is really negligible. This show could have been about a random This show could have actually literally been about a random other thing. It could have been inspired by Star Wars. It could have been anything else, a different sci-fi thing. It could have been anything. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's a good show regardless of it being Star Wars. And it's a good show as a Star Wars show. It's good in both fronts. And considering you guys are the same people who are pissing and shitting yourselves about how the sequel trilogy was so bad, even though it was spearheaded by people who were passionate fans of Star Wars, really does it really paint a good enough picture? Guys, if you think that the sequel trilogy was shit, it was spearheaded by people who claim to be big fans of Star Wars. Yeah, it was shit. But then also, this show made by Tony Gilroy, who was not a fan of Star Wars, it's also shit. Convenient. It's convenient that both of these ones are shit. It's just convenient, apparently. Maybe being a hardcore fans and being not hardcore fans really doesn't determine the actual quality of the product you're making. I mean, take fucking Star Wars Theory. He's allegedly a huge fan of Star Wars, and all his fan films fucking suck. They're just boring bullshit. Mace Windu come back, and he fights Darth Vader. It's like, wow, that is the perspective that you have. That is, of all the things you could come up with the Star Wars idea, IP, that is what you come up with. I'm not saying my Star Wars IP ideas are better too. I made Star Wars fanfiction ideas when I was younger and they were shit too. Sometimes you need an outsider perspective. And that's, again, why the original trilogy is almost universally regarded as the best one. Because George Lucas was such a fucking fanboy of his own idea. He had such a huge ego about his own fucking idea that he needed to call Gary Kurtz to be like, hey, can you put me in check a little bit? And it's like, yeah, of course I will. I'm not gonna let you suck your dick too hard, dude. In the fucking prequel trilogy, he literally, when he made episode 1, Phantom Menace, he literally, he was in charge of the cut at the time, and he made a 3-hour cut, and then played it for everyone to watch, and then he literally said, and I quote, I may have gone too far in a couple of places. Because, again, George Lucas, he even understands that you can't just be a self-aggrandizing fan of the same fucking thing over and over again. When you're a fan and the only thing you want is the same thing regurgitated over and over and over again, what you're going to get is just the same old shit regurgitated over and over again. Sometimes you need to introduce a new perspective to do something. It's again, why is this a bad thing? It's the same thing with the Echo. It's oh, this woman, she, hates Star Wars and she wants to make men uncomfortable. It's yeah, so what? This one part of the vast IP of fucking Star Wars is going to be slightly different. This is a good thing. I want to see, again, new and original, interesting ideas and concepts based on this IP. You can do so much with this intellectual property. You have a vast world you have a vast universe to pull from for ideas. Or you can even just start something completely new. Again, you could do so much. Why do you feel the need to just do the same thing over and over again? Jedi Anakin lightsaber Skywalker fight. Why? Why is that why the limits of your brain go? Why? Let me use this is an example I use a bit, but again, you can't just a huge fan of a franchise will make mistakes that people who are not necessarily fans of the franchise will go with. And here's an example. Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you haven't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, spoilers, you probably should have at this point. Season 2. they have a villain who has a very big redemption arc, Zuko, and in the first season, he's like basically just a straight up villain. Season 2, they introduced concepts of him possibly being a bit more than just a villain. Like, I mean, they introduced a little bit of it in season 1, but like also, the season 2 is the one where you start realizing maybe he's not really as evil as we were painted him to be in the first season. And he basically starts to turn good. He starts doing good things. And then, in the final episode, he is thrown in prison by his sister because he's a traitor to the Fire Empire, or the Fire Lord, the Fire Nation. And then he meets Katara, one of the main heroes, who's also trapped there. And then they actually have a heart-to-heart conversation about their lives. They're like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I also have a dead mother. Yeah, we can relate. The Fire Nation, this war has done so much bad stuff for us. And then she even offers to heal his scar, the thing that has been holding him back, that tied him down all these years. And then Azula and Iroh, his mentor, who's been slowly also kind of like shifting towards the good side, he is trying to tell Zuko, it's time for us to move past Fire Nation, and we need to help the Avatar bring peace back to the world. Then, his sister Azula offers him the chance to reclaim his honor by fighting the Avatar. And I guarantee you, I know this because I've seen reactions to this show. I've seen people post their reactions to this show. And they all do the same thing. They see Zuko. He fires in the middle of Aang and Azula. You don't know who he fired against. He stands in the crowd. He slowly looks like he's going to attack Azula. But then at the last second, he attacks Aang. Every single one of us, if we were in that writing room, we would have made Zuko turn good right then and there. But that's not what the character needed. He needed people to say, no, too soon. This is too soon. We need to make the hard decision that fans will hate. Fans will hate this decision. Fans hated this decision. Literally every time they see Zuko fire against Azula, they're like, fuck you, Zuko. How could you? You were so good. You were almost so close. You were so close to being good. They were like so mad. But they need to give him one more like half of a season to actually be like, hey, here is you getting literally everything you want, and you are still empty. To finally have Zuko realize, this isn't what I wanted. He's like gone through so much character development over the past 2 seasons that literally what he wanted in season 1, episode 1 is no longer what he wants. And that's when he makes his decision of his own volition to help the Avatar save the world. Star Wars yes men who like love the franchise wholeheartedly, who live, breathe, and die Star Wars, they're not going to make the hard decisions that you need. Sometimes you need someone who has a completely different perspective to give you something completely different. And that's, again, what Star Wars needs. It's an intellectual property that has existed since 1977. And to an extent, there are a lot of times where it is being held back by its tradition. Again, I mentioned this in the past episode. Star Wars dogfights are almost universally shot the exact same way. And there's like, maybe we should try changing things? Doing something different? Maybe. Possibly. I don't know. Would be interesting to try something different. And again, not every different is good. Sometimes we'll try and it doesn't work. The Acolyte, I can't really say any positive things. Again, I've only seen episode 1 of The Acolyte, but I can't really say anything that's like really good about it. Because the first episode didn't really draw me in that much. But Andor did. And that's why Andor is the best Star Wars show. It's just, despite it being completely out of the loop on a lot of Star Wars things that are allegedly supposed to be, it still captures the heart of Star Wars. And this is why I think it is, again, I guess there's not much else I can say. Andor is great. I honestly love it. And it's sad that Tony Gilroy won't be involved in any more Star Wars projects, because I'd honestly like to see more. I gotta be real, I think this is lightning in a bottle. I don't think we're going to be seeing any more projects like this, because with people like Star Wars Theory at the top of the Star Wars food chain, we're not going to be seeing much of this stuff like this in the future. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.